Hello, I'm back. Okay, so the topic of this video has kind of been on my mind, on my heart for the past couple of days, and so I figured, hey, let me just sit down and actually record it, because that's part of this whole process, is really learning to trust myself, really learning to trust my gut, trust my instincts. And so what I really want to talk about today is, I think, the number one thing that really made significant changes for me, or at least was sort of the foundation of changes that I was able to make in my life. And just a little background. So earlier this year, 2012, I probably put it at the beginning, I kind of found myself in that place where I thought I had done everything right. I had gotten degrees I needed to get, I was working in the field that I had picked, I was working in the job that I had picked. You know, there was nothing that was obviously wrong. Like I followed the path that I had chosen, and yet it didn't feel right. I was actually pretty miserable. And so that was kind of the catalyst for me sort of figuring out what went wrong. You know, what decisions could I make different? How could I move forward? And I think one of the first things that I stumbled on that worked really, really well for me was basically just meditation. Because the basic issue that I had was that I didn't know what I wanted, and I wasn't that well in tuned to myself, to my own inner guidance, sort of what made me happy. I didn't know how to connect to any of that. It was very sort of external, looking for outside validation, looking for everybody else to kind of tell me what's right, what's wrong. And just sort of navigating life in that way. Then, you know, there was some input from me. I wouldn't say that throughout my life that I haven't had those moments where I sought my own guidance and I found it and I followed certain paths. Like, I believe everything happened for a reason up until that point. But then it really began to shift. And so what meditation offered for me was the opportunity to connect to that guidance. But first I had to learn to be still, to really settle into myself. As part of this whole generation, constantly on the computer, constantly on the internet, surfing, looking for information, always listening to music, just constant flow of things coming in. And on top of that, I was a pretty anxious person. And so life was always about what I needed to do next, where was I going, what was going on now, whoa, all these things that were happening. And meditation, for me, calmed that down. It started with, I think I was doing maybe 5 minutes. I tried to do it at least once a day, but whenever I got kind of amped up, even if I was at work and I was just not focused, I would try to take 5 minutes, set a little timer, just sit and just take deep breaths. Let whatever thoughts and feelings come up, just let them be, and then I would let them float. Like, I would think about them being on a cloud and just let them float away. Like, oh, that's nice, okay. And just kind of give myself those 5 minutes to really just be. No particular goals per se, but to just be. Because I found that when I attached a goal to it, like, okay, so I'm going to be calm in 5 minutes, it didn't really work. But when I would just do it and I would just accept how I was feeling, accept what was going on, take those 5 minutes to just exist and breathe and let everything else go, I would look up, you know, an hour later and be like, oh my goodness, I was such a mess an hour ago, and now I'm fine and I'm focused and I'm moving forward. And I wouldn't even really recognize when that shift happened. Something would just happen. At the end of the 5 minutes, I would be like, yeah, I still feel kind of iffy. But then down the road, something would just happen, it would snap, and then I would be functioning a lot better again. And then as time went on, it's just brought down the intensity of when I would feel anxious, the frequency of it. So I might flip out about something, but it won't last as long. Like, it's like I have these tools that pull it back in, or things just won't bother me the same way that they used to. And it's really funny because it's been such a gradual process, because it's been about being consistent. And so I look up and I'm like, oh wait, a year ago I would have responded entirely differently than I am now. But it wasn't just one day that suddenly I wasn't responding that way. It just occurred over time. So I really appreciate that. And then constant meditation has helped me develop other goals or pursue other goals that I have. And I'll get more into that in other blogs or vlogs. But that's just the first thing that I start with, and the thing that I always go back to is meditation, particularly breathing meditation that involves just sitting, being, focusing on breath, and letting everything else go. There's all kinds of different types of meditations, and some of them that I use, but I can talk about those later. I just think the most important one is learning to settle into yourself. And as this one teacher that I particularly appreciate says, learn to sort of be your own guru. You are your own guru. Your answers are inside of you. You know what to do and you know where to go. Thanks for listening.